welcome back. We will discuss what is happening in DeFi, what's going on. We will explore together why DeFi is a paradigm shift in the financial industry as we know it today. Hello guys, welcome to basically the first episode from On-DeFi, where we talk to the best developers in the DeFi space. And the goal of this new channel of mine is to have a follow-up for DeFi 101 and DeFi 201. And I basically want to talk to people that are building in the space. And I want to today talk to Federico. And he built some amazing tools, and he's already long programming in the DeFi space. And we're going to have an open conversation about the current market and about the current developments in the space. So welcome, Federico. Maybe you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So as you said, I've been a little present in DeFi since I would say this time last year, 2019. So when I would date the beginning of DeFi, probably 2000. Well, concept were maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. But then when really things started picking up, especially in the Ethereum ecosystem, I think was mainly 2018. So I approached DeFi last year, mainly Uniswap and Compound. Back then was they were really the biggest protocols. Now we have others. And because of my interest in crypto, that is was coming from the previous years, and also other people that I met. And I built specifically a couple of projects in the space. Like one is Uniswap ROI, which is used by people investing in Uniswap as liquidity providers to track their investments. Another one is a similar tool for Compound, which again allows the users to understand a little bit better when they build lending and they borrow or they provide liquidity to Compound. And so that's sort of my presence in the space. More outside of DeFi, I come from sort of the world of finance. I worked in a large consulting firm before, and other than that, I'm more active in software in general. We build a software company, and that's sort of what I'm currently doing outside of DeFi also. So that's sort of the little backstory on.
Nice. And I will all the links to all the cool projects from Federico will be in the description below. Also of your software company and everything if people wanna find more about yourself. Very interesting. Yeah. So you also have not forget to mention also you have your own YouTube channel as well, where you talk about cumulative loss. You talked about the Uniswap ROI, which is quite difficult to calculate in my opinion. So when you were a software developer already in for a longer period of time, and did you enter Bitcoin also in 2019 or a little bit before that as well?
Right. So in terms of as I said, my background is more. So I'm an engineer by training, but my background has been mainly more on the finance side, management consulting side. I went back into software in 2016, 2017 because we built a company which is in the space of software for business development, which has nothing to do with specifically DeFi. That's when I, since we founded the company, I went back into more of the technical. Crypto, I started knowing a little bit Bitcoin, I think in 2014, 15, and then more DeFi more recently. And I specifically, my approach with DeFi was that I really got fascinated when I got to know a little bit better about Uniswap and how it works, like the principle behind the project. And then, as you mentioned, it's super hard and maybe we can, whatever, we have a way to discuss a little bit this today, but it's very hard for people if they want to, if they want to use it to exchange token, that is actually super easy. But if they want to invest and to provide liquidity, it's actually very complex mechanism. And so I said, okay, so it's very complex. Maybe we can, whatever, create a little tool to simplify the tracking, to understand, what you're doing, the returns and calculation like this. And so that sort of was the trigger for start building in the space. And since then, I guess, like, the space exploded. There's like so many projects. It's even hard to keep up on what's going on.
Very, very much hard to keep up. And that's also why we give together with the Ivan on Tech Academy, we gave like these courses. Now we want to get more like into the technical speaking with all the people that are building on it, because indeed it's very hard to keep up. What I wonder, so a lot of the people that did DeFi 101 and DeFi 201, and including myself, I think it's very good that you saw Uniswap so early. And how did you saw an idea and you started building the software, right? So you were like, okay, I have this plan, I have this idea, and instead of, you didn't do an ICO, you didn't do a fundraise, it was basically all you. Or maybe you work together with maybe a team because you have a software company as well, that you had some resources available, or
so I did have a few resources available, but actually I built it myself. It was basically Uniswap ROI at this moment is kind of a little side project. And also last year we were in the process of really selling the company that we built. So
which company was this a software company?
Yeah, it's called Enquota. It's a software as a service for business development that we built. We started that in 2017. Team in Israel and customers mainly in the US, and that was sold like end of last year. Was acquired by a competitor, and so that's kind of what my primary focus has been in the past 2-3 years. But last year, I was actually, a friend of mine introduced me to this automated market making protocol. It's new, it's growing very fast. And at the beginning, I didn't really say, okay, I didn't even understand it per se. But then when I started reading about it, I said, no, like this is crazy. This is gonna be huge, or at least like it has the potential to be really big. In particular, what caught my attention was that it was back then one of the real DAO implementation in the way that is completely autonomous. It's smart contract. It differently by other, compared to other protocols in the space. They didn't have project keys, right? So it's really autonomous 100%. There's no there essentially is no governance. Back then it was permissionless and sort of feeless, right? So it was crazy. I said, okay, this is really really aligned with the vision of Ethereum and the vision of crypto and the new financial system. And so I really studied that. It took me maybe 2 weeks to really understand how that worked
pretty
in
fast
depth.
Still.
And because it's really complicated, right? And back then, okay, there were a few articles, but not as today. And but then I realized this is super hard, right? How do people are supposed to right to even play with this or to even invest if it's impossible to understand like what you're doing. So at the beginning was something very, very basic. So the idea is you if you already invested in Uniswap, you can put in your Ethereum address, and then the tool sort of does reconciliation of all your movements, your positions, and it gives you a little analysis. Or if you still have to choose, or you're not decided whether to invest or not, you can understand. You can have a sort of bird view on what different pools are yielding at the moment. What's the sort of projection, and then you can the user can decide whether they want to provide liquidity or not. And then over time, sort of the tool sort of expanded a little bit. But that sort of was the core concept. Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting. And indeed, these calculation modules are very, a bit complicated, especially with the infinitive laws. And you actually explain. I really like it that you built this tool, and you also started a YouTube channel where you actually explain a lot about what Uniswap is, how to make money with these different pooled tokens. There's a lot of different factors in there. Now, right now, the tool is still as online. It's functioning well. I use it myself as well. How do you? Because you started it, you basically were selling your company, so I guess you had some revenue there. But how would you recommend, like, let's say, a developer in the space right now that is maybe just a software developer, or he is a aspiring developer? How can they start, and how did you get started, and how do you how do you get started, and how do you monetize it? Because also, of course, you need to live, and you need to sustain yourself as well. How do you do that right now?
Sure. So well, I'm glad you mentioned the YouTube channel, not because of per se promotion of that, but because I think is also so like the communication around what's going on in DeFi is also pretty key. So sometimes, especially like technical builders and developers, all about like creating a new protocol, creating a new app or tool. But then is also how do you sort of spread the word and communicate and create a usership. So that's also proving very useful to integrated along with the software to create usership. I would say so in terms of what is possible to build, what people can build. And I think, like, I guess in your courses, in your modules, you probably cover this. I think if we talk about DeFi, there are two layers, at least two layers that in my view you can operate in. So either sort of a more base layer, which is you create a protocol, and this seems to be the main route that people are taking these days. Where you create a new dApp, a new protocol, a new almost like building block in the financial ecosystem. And this is like sort of the layer zero, because it's really to do this, you create a smart contract.
Yeah.
And then you apply your logic there. You understand you need to probably maybe not. You have a token, maybe not. But sort of displaying to the core level. And then I would say there is another layer on top of applications that probably could be built. And I guess this Uniswap ROI that I built is more in the second layer, where you don't need to create a new contract, and you don't need to create a new smart contract or a new protocol, but rather you sit on top of existing protocols. And Uniswap ROI sits on top of only one, which is Uniswap. I think in terms of where I'd like to expand it in the future, I'd like it to be more of a platform for liquidity providers. So whereby, because like it's true that there is a pretty powerful network effect in Uniswap. So I guess it will be pretty big potentially. But it's also true that if you look at Balancer, you look at Curve, right? People are providing liquidity not just into Uniswap, but probably into a number of different other systems. Maybe, I don't know, Curve is more for stable coins, Balancer is more for other things, but create more of a consolidated tool for liquidity providers. But essentially, it sits on top of other applications. And I think Uniswap ROI is a bit one of the, not many, but for example, I mean, it's very vertical on liquidity providing, but if we expand a little bit, we see other, for example, Zerion. Zerion is sort of a hybrid because there's also smart contract. But basically, I mean, at the grander scheme of things, I see either you want to build at the base level or layer, or intermediate layer, or even like on top, you could even abstract even a layer on top and say, oh, now not just I know each individual protocol, I also consolidate them, but I almost able to do some big decision on how I allocate capital. So almost do a algo trading or robo trading on top of even the calculation and even the analysis. So I would say first is, I mean, people need to make a choice. What do they want to build? Do they want to build like a core new protocol, or do they want to sit on other existing smart contracts? And that sort of determines what you need to know, right? So if you want to build a smart contract, you need to know Solidity. You need to also have an idea in terms of what financial system mechanism you want to implement.
Yes.
And but I would say in general, I mean, these things are considered like it's a very interesting space. And on one side, there is not much built, right? So like regardless of where you want to position yourself, there is probably a good gap that you can fill, right? Either, as we said, more information layer, even more at the base layer. So there is space. It's completely deregulated at the moment, right? So the barrier to entry is really just, okay, do I know Solidity? Do I know, I don't know, like some Python or some JavaScript in terms of like communicating, querying the blockchain? And so resources that you need, right? You asked me, like, you don't need necessarily even like a huge team, or maybe you can do it yourself. You can start off a project, because at the end of the day, building is pretty easy. Is then creating usership, right? And making something that then people use, that is the challenge. And so I don't think people really need any special resources. Maybe with your module, with your courses, they can get started. And then, and I think is finding that magic between software, between filling a need, and then communicating what you build. So software need and media, in a sense, that can work with magic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I know this answers your question with a bit of a...
Yeah, that was a very good answer. So basically, you say you just need to build, and if I also understand a little bit correctly, it's like, okay, you build it on one layer, and then you will eventually create usership, but also what you didn't answer was like because maybe some people in the space they now have a full-time job, and they can basically do it as a side hustle. And then later,
Right.
when there's really more usership, you can do it full time. I think that's also right now that the Uniswap ROI is a really good tool. I like it, and when I see it, I really wanted to connect with you, and that's why we're also talking. And I think and your YouTube channel is also a way to position yourself, I think, in this space. And do you get now, because you did these things, do you get a lot of like inquiries, or do you get a lot of people that potentially want to work with you or want to hire you because of this cool tool that you built?
Yes. So yeah, definitely there's a lot of action. I agree. It's a space where people can, I would say, still position themselves, especially it's a very practical, no BS space. If you even also see the people, I think a good way to position yourself is really by building something that people use. Is a good way to enter the space and be on the map. In terms of contacts and inbounds, yes, I get a lot of inbound, also because I still want it. It's essentially, for me, it's a side project. I want it to be pretty personal with the users. I put my contacts there. There's a Telegram. There's the link to my Twitter. So people, get in touch pretty often. It's good to talk to them. Like some have a pretty huge holding. Some are just getting started. And there's no, I don't give financial advice, but rather talking about the market and technicalities. So that's been definitely very, very interesting. And then in terms of monetization. So the tool for me right now, as I mentioned, like it's a project, and along with the others that we're doing. And this is sort of on the side. Yeah, so maybe people can start asking, but what about like the market? I mean, what could I expect in terms of I don't know, creating a project where I can monetize it, or I can have any commercial angle to it. So this is interesting. So I think like majority of the projects, especially the ones that are related to a protocol, right? So I don't know, think about even Uniswap or other that are coming, all the lending protocols. Basically everything is very much based on a fee, on a transaction fee, right? In terms of business model. By the way, in terms of business model, there is a great group within the Ethereum community, which is dedicated, I think it's called a Business Model Circle, something like that. Okay. And they are doing some really good research in terms of what are the business models for Web3. So far, like percentage-based fee and transaction fees, right? It's sort of this sort of percentage model is what is more common. But obviously, you need a huge transaction volumes in order to make it work, and also you need very good network effect. Otherwise, people just recreate what you build without the fee, right? Because it's all open source. The route that I went with the Uniswap is that it's a very basic business model, which is SaaS essentially. So the only difference between a normal SaaS software as a service, where you pay whatever monthly and then you use the software, is that people can come in and pay with the MetaMask, with Ethereum. So every liquidity provider, by definition, by using Uniswap, they also have MetaMask, they also have Ethereum. So I said, okay, so probably the easiest thing for them to do is really just connecting with MetaMask and pay with MetaMask. People do. So that's quite interesting. I think it's one of the first application that or utilities that you can go in and really pay with Ethereum. So that was interesting to build. And so I would say, in terms of maybe also people are watching, like developers or who is thinking about also monetization. I mean, also consider this aspect. Maybe you create a new protocol, and therefore maybe you want to put in a transaction fee or a percentage fee, fine. Or if you create you build on top of others, maybe you want to consider more of a SaaS model, and so allow people to pay per user, or pay per, I don't know, for a year. So that could be also another model. It's all very new, so don't expect to have a crazy whatever.
Basically, you have
income at the beginning, but
than Zapper, Zapper.fi. Like you have a business model. Zapper.fi shows also some sort of it, but I think you have a better Explorer function. But they don't have this business plan. You have this business plan also with analysis, and you invested so much. This was your return, etc., etc. Yeah, it's really really cool, I think, and it makes sense. The business model makes sense. And how is it going? Is there a lot of attention for it? Do you have a lot of people that take the large investor or pro package, or?
Right. So far, I think the growth has been really crazy, especially since March. In terms of looking at the usage, has been, I would say, like, since I started playing with Uniswap, and I can see this not just tracking the usage on the tool, but also tracking the YouTube channel. I think, broadly speaking, Uniswap, the use so far, I think, has been doubling every 4 months, more or less. And that was through, I think, basically since it started, I would say. So that's sort of the growth. And I would say recently, with this last period, also not just Uniswap, but in general DeFi, there was a lot of momentum. In terms of revenues, I think there is about, well, people, first off, they can pay either yearly or they can pay monthly. The thing with Ethereum right now is not easy to create recurring payments on the blockchain. So if they pay monthly, users, they need to pay every month to do a new transaction. Or if they pay yearly, obviously it's a year lump sum, but then it lasts for a year. I think there are between maybe 20 and 30 users that converted to pay so far within the different plans. And but I would say, by the way, the tool, what I decided to do, because I wanted to still have usership, but have the people that, I don't know, if a user has $1 million worth of tokens and they're using Uniswap, obviously by using the tool, maybe this month they're going to make, I don't know, 100,000 delta, right, by using the tool, versus a person has $200 worth of Ethereum and tokens. Obviously the return will be much smaller. So I decided that every user below that, which has a holding below $10,000 worth of tokens and Ethereum, the usage is totally free. And then, which I think is more or less the threshold, the tool make real difference, and then it's but what the interesting part is there of station holding is increasing, and so people are really, I don't know if they are really or taking, I don't know, taking the taking shot at DeFi or happening, but definitely the usage is going up, also in terms of the size of the holding that these people are investing in Uniswap, for example. Yeah,
interesting, interesting indeed. And I think this will be a growing, ever growing trend. Oh, Alex, I'm doing an interview. So this will be like an ever growing use case. Are you also thinking of also offering the same for like Balancer, like for example, integrating Balancer or other pools as well in your tool?
Yeah. So ideally, I like to turn this into a more liquidity platform for liquidity providers, let's say. And so Balancer, Curve, many users ask for these already, and I think they could be a sort of a natural extension of what's already there. So yeah, definitely in the pipeline.
Nice. So because how do you do? Because I think this is a side project of yours, but how do you keep track of everything, right? How do you make sure that the Uniswap pools are, or sorry, how do you separate your time, because you have time invested in your Uniswap ROI calculator, but it's a part-time thing. So when do you plan to maybe switch on it full time, or you always wanted to keep it more of as a side business and maybe later sell it, or what is the plans? What is the plans with your tool right now?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, right now we're actually launching another company, more in the software space, but again, like not in DeFi. So most of the time, I would say 90% or 95% of the time goes the other main project. But definitely I want to. I use, as you said, like the Uniswap ROI also as a way to connect with the space, see what's going on, talk to people. So be in the know in a sense on what's happening, and we'll see what happens in terms of
it's a nice side hustle. Do you plan to also go full-time into DeFi, or do you want to keep the balance between and software development, more traditional software?
That's a good question. I mean, per se, as I mentioned, like I consider I do development, but I consider myself more of a entrepreneur in terms of what we're building. I think it's a really good question in terms of why or if to go 100% in DeFi or to 100% outside of DeFi. I think I like DeFi, and at this point, I would say DeFi, it's even more powerful to me than crypto per se, because DeFi identifies a specific subset of things that are happening in crypto. DeFi, it's very interesting because it's it's almost like it's a little bubble. It's completely decoupled, I would say, from what's happening outside. More of a commercial, enterprise that you can build. DeFi is completely decoupled from any effect that of the reward in a sense. Very interesting, very high growth. Interesting people. I think the question that I've been asking myself, especially after our last company, and I was asking myself, should we make something like 100% in DeFi or go big here? The potential is definitely there. I see a lot of obviously early sort of speculation, right? So a lot of what's happening is also driven by this token is going up 100 times, or this is we build leverage on this because. So there's a lot of margin trading and the speculation leverage, which I think is interesting. But I still like to have build products that are used and to get paid, or to create business model, revenue model for something that people use and they find useful, and they pay, versus create huge financial products which based on not real. So I think the potential is definitely there. Maybe the commercial application for commercial application is a little bit early. If you see what I mean. And so I decided, and for now, I still want to, I'm still interested in creating commercial value in terms of, products and things that people can use. So this, having both a focus on the real world and on DeFi is something at this point I really like. And I hope DeFi becomes more, less of a financial oriented 100% abstract thing, and becomes more of a fulfill the promise of being something tangible and can be used for commercial applications and business and commerce and all the good stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think we both all need to work very hard to make that into a reality where I think it's also for people that are watching, or people that are doing the courses, or people that want to get into the space. Also try to still have your part-time or full-time job as a developer or as a business developer, or different things that you can do, and then also look into the DeFi market and actually see where you combine your traditional world money-making thing that you're doing with something in DeFi or something in blockchain. I think that's also really smart from your perspective, because with the knowledge you now have and with the SaaS company you have, there's probably a lot of different possibilities that will come up that you then can use blockchain for or DeFi for, and that it should be just part of the software stack. It should not just be just DeFi or blockchain, but I think it should be part of that stack. So I think that is
and also I would say at the end of the day, DeFi, it's great because it's permissionless, it's borderless, it's global, that's great. But then I think to really become useful, which is I think the thing that everybody wants, because at the end of the day, the value of Ethereum, the value of everything that's built on Ethereum is built on the assumption that this will become used and will get adoption. And in order to get adoption, it has to be useful. So to be useful, I think it will not just, as we said, like speculation and margin trading, but it needs to enable real world application, especially in the world of I see finance in terms of debt, in terms of payments, commerce, and so I think by the time we're going to have businesses that run on the blockchain and they can take financing on DeFi, and therefore the interest that you get on your loan is actually interest on a business endeavor that you finance via your loan. And you see how the system then is put to fruition, and then I think that creates the the condition for adoption of Ethereum, and therefore for growth in value and so on and so forth. So I think we need to get there. I think everybody that is building, other than for speculation, I think is convinced that we're going to get there.
Yes.
The question is also when, right? And I think if people really wants to get into the space right now, I think is a great time. I wouldn't be too concerned that you get into this space and then what happens if everything go bust in 2 years, you have no job. I don't think that should be it wouldn't be my concern per se, but rather I think the question you need to be asking is like, do I like to build application, to build an infrastructure which right now is mainly serving the purpose of quote unquote betting on one price going up, the other price going down, creating a leverage, doing margin trading. So if that doesn't bother you, then go on. I think is a good place. If you want to build more of maybe commercial sort of applications, then I think you can start working on those. The only question is maybe the timing, right? I don't know if we're there yet, but we're gonna get.
For me, it's a no-brainer, because like when I use nowadays, I use a decentralized exchange a couple of years ago. That was a very shitty user experience. Now I can use a decentralized exchange to take certain investment positions, and with Zapper or with Uniswap ROI, I can track all my positions. And this is much better than a bank. It's much better than a bank. So
yeah.
The game has started, and I think we will have to play in it, and we have to find a position for ourselves. But this game, I think this play will play out itself in the coming 100 or 1,000 years, to see how this traditional financial system is now how it's merging or clashing or evolving together with the centralized financial system, because that is what we need. Yeah, I know, Federico, you need to go in a bit.
Yeah.
So I want to close off. It's like with one sentence, like a positive point and a negative something positive that you see, like your positive outlook on DeFi, and also one thing that might concern you in DeFi.
Right. Okay, so great. So I think like on the positives, I mean, it's really hard not to see positivity when you look at the growth. I would say speed of the event, especially in the usership. So seeing so many more people understanding what DeFi is, and in general taking the leap into DeFi, that's very positive. I don't think, by the way, to my knowledge, there is a space which when we're talking, I don't know, 20, 30, 40% a month, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's incredible. And if you consider also the potential, because like, okay, maybe let's call it 30% a month or 40% a month, but then what are the numbers? It's still very small, right? Maybe, yes, I don't know, 100,000 users total. So then the speed and the opportunity is massive. It could be really interesting. Definitely very, very positive. Very positive on the very nature of
user growth. If it's your positive points. Yeah,
user growth, also user experience. I mean, as you said, like it's unbelievable that we're having this discussion and 99.9% of other people, they don't know it, right?
Yes.
So it will be interesting to see in a few years, or I don't know what's going to happen, but see this discussion, because I think really the experience is great. I think by the time, it's almost like I see Ethereum and DeFi, but especially Ethereum, almost as this, parallel financial infrastructure, which is developing, is almost not used, right? So it's almost like, I don't know, a road with tunnels, with everything, all features, right? Every station, gas stations, and charging station, whatever it is. And right now it's not kind of used, but it's kept being built. And it's hard to believe that at some point something will happen in the real world, so that everybody, freak out and say, oh, now what do we do? And they realize, oh, but there is this new highway completely funding we can use it right now, right? It's there to be used. And it's hard to believe that that won't happen. And at that point, I think it will be almost, it's a point of no return, right? It will be inevitable that a lot of users, the adoption will come. And so that makes me feel very, very, very positive about DeFi. In terms of negative, I think with every new, probably with every new technology, there are risks, and I think in the case of DeFi or in crypto in general, is this more speculation. So I mean, the market bubbles, right? And so will there be a DeFi bubble? Very likely, I think, right? With all these new tokens, and maybe I don't know, maybe in 2016, 17, the excuse was ICO. This time will be DeFi going crazy, and so again, like, will people lose money or people go bust? Maybe some. So caution on what you do, and this applies to everybody. And I would say, the risk is I guess that people get caught up too much on, but like, what about this token going 50x versus how do we use DeFi to provide loans that are unsecured, and to create something that this is more tangible. But I think it's all normal, and at the end of the day, I think it's all part of building this highway, and sort of being patient until everything else is almost, everything else start needing a new highway. And at that point, it's finished and it's ready to go.
Yeah, that's very good. So we need to, we can be positive about the growth, but we need to watch out for yield chasing. We don't not just chase yield. Understand why we do that, because if at the end of the day, yes, there is a high yield right now on certain protocols that it's because of an inefficient market. If more people come in and it's just people want to make more money without having some sort of a philosophy in our space, then we will never succeed. We need more liquidity pools. We need more external CeFi connection with more real world assets and other markets of just selling tokens to each other. Else it's just it's a little bit.
And the last point maybe that we can add, I would say, is also governance. I think something that I'm really, really bullish about is things like Aragon, for example, where, think about this, like if me and you wanted, like, we know each other via Telegram, but to be honest, I don't know where you're located, you probably don't know where I'm located. We have I would say, goal-based knowledge of each other based on this common interest that we have around DeFi. Like if we wanted to create a company together, a project together in the real world, that would be a mess, because where do we create a company, but we need the bank account, where do we do that? And then it's all sort of mess. And then what happens if who has the delegation on the bank account? It's all kind of messy. Versus we can say, okay, let's do a DAO on Aragon, and then we're gonna put down what you're gonna do, what I'm gonna do, who has the rights on writing checks and sending payments and approving transactions, and then this and that and that, and it's done, right? So think about how this can really enable business and commerce and new transactions, right? Light speed. I think this is another thing that I'm very, very long on.
Yeah, so Aragon is one of these projects that actually delivered out of the ICO craze, same as some other projects. It actually started to deliver right now after the whole bubble that we had. So I can clearly see an evolution happening right now in terms of DeFi. protocols that are actually delivering, and I think that's really cool to see. And they don't need 10 million, like yourself. The Uniswap ROI is an amazing tool, or also Compound and other tools that they didn't raise. They raised a good amount of money because but most of them didn't really raise the ICO levels of money, and they delivered much more quality. So I'm very happy to see that. All right, so this was a very good conversation. If people want to find you, where's the best way that they can contact you?
Sure. So I'm available on Twitter. My first name, last name, Federico Nitidi. Otherwise, within the the YouTube channel, maybe it's called DeFi ROI. If you guys want to check it out. Otherwise, the tool uniswaproi.com, and then within the almost each page there are my contacts. If you guys want to chat or have questions, you can find me there.
Amazing, man. I will link all the details below, and then I wish you a great day, and let's keep connected, and let's everybody on the On-DeFi channel, let's learn from Federico, and let's keep on building and make the space bigger, better, and more efficient altogether, because at the end of the day it's a collective that makes this movement actually possible instead of us individuals. All right, so
fantastic.
Thank you.
It was great talking, and we'll be in touch soon.
We'll be in touch soon, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.